It is my great honor to introduce the President of the United States, President Joe Biden.
Thank you, Secretary Buttigieg. Thank you all for being here. Please sit down.
I'm sorry. That's just bro. He called this man Secretary Booty Juice. Oh man. Well, we gotta talk about Secretary Booty Juice today because he went on. I'm sorry. He went on Face the Nation, and just y'all just gotta hear this, man, because this right here should make you angry, right? What we're about to witness should really make you angry. So it's probably a good thing I just made you laugh a little bit. At least I hope you laughed at that, Secretary Booty Juice. Oh my goodness, because this clip is probably gonna make you angry, right? And it should make all Americans angry that this type of stuff is happening. And like I said, I'm just gonna let y'all see it. I don't want to spoil it. Like, share, comment, and hit that subscribe button if you are new. And let's dive into this. It's just a poop show. I mean, my goodness. Check it out.
I want to ask you about something that we hear quite a lot about on the campaign trail, and that is electric cars, electric vehicles. Donald Trump repeatedly talks about President Biden's decision to force the industry towards making 56% of car batteries electric by 2032, 13% hybrid. Listen to what he said in New Jersey recently.
Do you notice he's trying to save the electrical vehicle, but not the gas-powered, which is the vehicle that everybody wants? They're going crazy with the electric car, costing us a fortune. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars subsidizing a car that nobody wants and nobody's ever going to buy.
He's not wrong.
He's
on
wrong.
The purchasing. He's not. Of the 4 million vehicles purchased, 269,000 electric vehicles were sold in the U.S. market. It's up like 2%.
Every single year, more Americans buy EVs
But
than
why
the year. Well, this is really important.
More quickly.
Every single.
Out of the 4,269,000, and see, once again, here's another example, because I do want to continually point this out so that everyone understands what I'm talking about when I say Democrats are very strategic. You just heard her say out of the 4 million cars, only 260,000 are EVs, which is like 2%, right? And he said his reply is every year more people are buying electric vehicles. Well, when only 2% are purchasing, I mean, that's a very low bar to pass, right? It's an extremely low bar to meet. So even if 50 more people buy it the next year, so instead of 260,000, it's, or wait, what did he say? 260,000, it's 260,050 people. So like it increased by this much, but it's technically a fact. And it sounds good coming off the lips to people who don't really like look into the numbers. So like that's another way that Democrats, man, they're slick. They're slick. I will give them credit. And Republicans need to be a little more slick like Democrats. I will admit that. But anyway, let's continue.
Year, more Americans buy EVs than the year prior. There are two things that I think are needed for that to happen even more quickly. One is the price, which is why the Inflation Reduction Act acted to cut the price of an electric vehicle. The second is making sure we have the charging network we need across.
Inflation Reduction Act acted to reduce the price. It acted to spend taxpayer dollars on helping people purchase those vehicles. That's what he needed to say. But once again, there's another example of how Democrats are very strategic in how they word things or just how they do stuff in general. Very strategic. The truth is, it's using taxpayer dollars to help the purchase, to help fund the purchase of those vehicles. But he said, oh, well, the Inflation Reduction Act helped reduce the cost of vehicles, which technically is true. I mean, Actually, technically, it's not true because it doesn't reduce the price of the vehicle. You just give people money to help purchase the vehicle. But anyway, another strategic, move right there. But we're gonna call them out every single time and twice on Sunday. You understand me?
Across America, even though most EV owners will do most of their charging at home. If you live in an apartment building or you're driving long distances, you need other options in those chargers. So that's exactly what we're working on. But I want to talk about the bigger point here. And I take this very personally because I grew up in the industrial Midwest, literally in the shadow of broken down factories from car companies that did not survive into the turn of the century because they
And
didn't
many of
keep
those
up
auto
with the
workers
times.
are concerned that electric vehicles require fewer humans to manufacture.
The most important thing is that the EV revolution will happen with or without us, and we've got to make sure that it's American-led. And that's what the president is focused on. We don't want China. Look, under the Trump administration, they allowed China to build an advantage in the EV industry. But under President Biden's leadership, we're making sure that the EV revolution will be a made in America EV revolution that
Because
is
of these
critically
tariffs you're
important.
talking about that President Biden says he's going to roll
Also,
out.
just making sure we invest in America's capacity, making sure that we are onshoring or friend-shoring the materials and the processing of what goes into these EVs, making sure that America masters these processes. Because look, there's no way that we're going to get to the middle of this century with the technology that we counted on a century ago. Now, there are obviously a lot of voices here in Washington who are interested in keeping the status quo.
He says it's going to be one of the first things he does.
Would
if
be
he's
happy to
reelected.
see Americans trapped with dirty and expensive fuels. But the reality, and I know
Dirty and expensive fuels. Well, the funny thing about all of this is they never talk about how you have people mining for cobalt and all of these other things to make these batteries. And how do you think the raw materials have to get here? It's not by an electric plane. It's not by an electric train, right? Like, you're using gas to get all of that stuff here. Right? So when they talk about, oh, well, EVs are cleaner. No, they aren't, because you're not talking about, or you're not even considering the production that is involved in the EVs, including the battery, which those batteries, as far as I know, can't be recycled. So now you're tossing giant battery cells into a landfill. How well is that going to go? But that's stuff that they never want to talk about, though. They never want to talk about that side of things.
he's made.
But then also another great point is, where's all this electricity coming from? Oh, it goes back to I had a YouTube short which had a lady from, I don't even remember, but she was bragging about, an electric car, and the car was like plugged into a building, and the reporter was like, well, how's this car charging? And she said, well, it's plugged into the building. And he said, well, how is it getting this power? And she said, it's plugged into the building. And she said no, or he said no, like, where are they getting the power from? And she said, well, the power comes from whatever power company. She named the power company or whatever in the video. And the guy who runs the power plant happened to be there at that time. And so the reporter went over first he asked her, he was like, how do they generate the power? And she was like, natural gas, I believe. Like, it clicked to her what the reporter was actually doing. And the truth came out first. She said coal. I think they're natural gas mainly. Some of you might remember that YouTube short that I had dropped. A lot of y'all saw that, because I believe it had millions of views. So then he went over to the power plant, the guy who runs the power plant, and he was like, how do you guys generate power? He was like, mainly coal, a little bit of natural gas. And it defeated the whole purpose of charging the thing. Either you could get the oil out of the ground yourself and make it into gasoline, or you could just pay a power plant to burn a bunch of coal to generate electricity to charge your stupid car. It just doesn't make sense. Either way, even if you want to use EV, you're still polluting, right?
a lot of promises to the oil and gas CEOs about some of the favors that he believes
But
his
it
administration
obviously is
will deliver
resonating
them.
for him because he wouldn't bring it up so frequently if there wasn't some anxiety that he's tapping into. And let me ask you about a portion of this that I think does fall under your portfolio, and that's the charging stations you mentioned. The Federal Highway Administration says only 7 or 8 charging stations have been produced with a $7.5 billion investment that taxpayers made back in 2021. Why isn't that happening more quickly?
So the president.
Before he goes into like his scripted nonsensical rant, you heard that right. Our taxpayer dollars, $7.5 billion of it, has built between 7 and 8 charging stations. $7.5 billion, not 7.5 million, billion, has gone into building 7 or 8 charging stations. Now, unless those charging stations are the size of freaking Texas, then somebody's making a lot of money. A whole lot of money. We getting robbed. This is highway robbery. Or these people are completely incompetent, which I think it's both, right? We getting robbed and these people are completely incompetent. But I'll let them finish. Let them cook. Let them cook.
His goal is to have 500,000 chargers up by the end of this decade. Now, in order to do a charger, it's more than just plunking a small device into the ground. There's utility work, and this is also really a new category of federal investment. But we've been working with each of the 50 states. Every one of them is getting formula dollars to do this work,
7 or
engaging
8,
them
though?
in the first handful. Again, by 2030, 500,000 chargers. And the very first handful of chargers are now already being physically built. But again,
So he expects to have 500,000 by 2030. We're in 2024. 4 years into, almost 4 years, nearly 4 years into them trying to push for this, and he's got 7 done. And he wants us to believe that 500,000 of them are going to be built over the next 6 years, when in 3 years, he could only make 7. Make that make sense. I mean, I was never like the greatest at math, but like that math ain't mathing right there. 2 + 2 is not 4 in that equation.
that's the absolute very, very beginning stages of the construction to come.
But that gets to the point about not being able to make long distance travel possible quickly if you don't have the infrastructure there
Right,
to support it. So you recognize it.
Yeah,
it
most
should
of
be
the charging
moving more
infrastructure right now is being provided by the private sector. The reason that we're investing federal dollars is to fill in some of the gaps in areas where it is not yet profitable for the private sector to do it. Now, again, the majority of charging will happen at home. And in some senses, an electric vehicle has more in common. Fueling it has more in common with charging your phone than it does with filling up a gas car in ways that are both helpful and challenging. But that is exactly the transition that America is going through right now. And the other thing, again, is the price, right? We have seen the cost of EVs fall to now where it's within a few percent of an equivalent gas car. Depending on the model, you may come out ahead now.
But that was part of
it's
these-
depending on the model.
These tariffs, though, as well, on Chinese-made
Yeah, the tariffs are about making sure that
flooding with cheap electric
Right. I mean,
vehicles.
part of what we see, right, is China pouring huge resources into uncompetitive means, or I should say unfair means of competition. President Biden is not going to allow that to happen to the American auto industry.
But respond to this, because your fellow Democrat, Colorado Governor Jared Polis, called it horrible news for American consumers, a major setback for clean energy, that President Biden rolled out these tariffs, which he calls direct regressive tax on Americans, and this tax increase will hit every family.
Look,
Why is he wrong?
I have a lot of friends in the Democratic Party who believe in free trade no matter what. President Biden's
Also, probably the reason why these prices are falling, one, is because they're trying to subsidize it, but two, nobody wants them. I know I personally don't want an electric car, and I never wanted an electric car. I think it's kind of weird. I mean, to each his own, right? If that fits your lifestyle, if that's, if that's the way you want to get down, then, you have every right to. I'm not going like, see, like leftists, they'd be out here like protesting and destroying people's cars and stuff like that. Like, no, I don't care. But like for me, I will never purchase an electric car, ever. I want to hear a mechanical engine roar, Maybe that's just me. Y'all can let me know in the comment section. Are y'all for electric cars? Y'all against them? Would you ever purchase one? let us all know. I know I never will. Ever. I'll never purchase an electric car. Not unless I'm like absolutely forced because, Democrats have taken over this country and we've become a dictatorship, the same thing that they accused Trump of trying to bring us to, which is why I know it's actually Democrats who would love to, because they always project, right? Always project. They're always doing that. Blame the other side for what we're doing or what we want to do, right? So unless they become the dictators and they force everybody to buy an electric car and that's the only way you can have a vehicle, well, then sure, of course. If we're in a dictatorship, all right, and we all gotta fall in line to follow the Democrat dictators. Okay, all right, you got me. But outside of that, and that's a very long shot, I'm not purchasing any electric vehicle ever. And also, one of the reasons why he said electric vehicles have more in common to a phone is because these things take a while to charge, even with the fast chargers. It's like an hour to charge. Same thing with those cars. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to go to a gas station and sit there for 45 minutes. I like to go to the gas station, pump my gas, and get on down the road. Like 5 minutes in and out. Less than that, really 4 minutes, and I'm in and out. I don't got time to be sitting here for 45 minutes waiting on this darn thing to charge. Like, who got time for that? Not me. Time is precious. Time is precious, and I'm not trying to waste any of it to save the planet, right? I don't buy any of that mess anyway, but that's just me personally. Maybe I'm an idiot. Y'all can let me know in the comment section. But yeah, $7.5 billion for 8 charging stations. That's what they spent our money on. How ridiculous is that? How ridiculous. Y'all let me know what you thought about this in the comment section below. Like, share, comment. Hit that subscribe button before you go. Peace and love. I'm out.